So, if you've been here a while, then you already know the next part that's coming up. Yeah, you already know. And of course it's a resin kit. But I decided this time around, let's do something different. Let's skip too many of the fancy cut edits and stuff. And explain how to build a resin kit. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people already out there who's done it before, but what's one more from another guy who does this for a while? So, first thing we're going to do, let's get into the box. Let's go.
All right, let's get into it. So, when we first open the box, we're going to have ourselves the instruction manuals here for the Rig DS. I mean, I say it's an instruction manual, but it's just honestly a 3-page fold-out and a parts list count. It really is not an instruction book at all. I mean, it's a good help to count for parts. It's very clear and visible on what the parts and the shapes look like, so you're able to identify them with inside the package very easily. But yeah, this is actually going to require a little bit more skill to build than I originally had thought it would be, so wishing best of luck. Next, we're going to move right along and we're going to check out the parts that come with it. Now, in the resin kits, they mostly come in these sealed, airtight, different compartment pouches. And usually, each of the pouches are the parts that go for usually each section of either the arms, the legs, and what for. And the small bits are usually compiled together, which kind of makes it a pain when you're trying to count parts. But as you can see on the packages, I've already counted it and marked everything as I went along to make sure everything was included, because it's important within the first 14 days you have this done, just in case if you need to get a spare part. And as well, do not open them. You have to count them inside the closed package, because if you do, and if you are missing something, you're completely screwed and they will not replace them for you. Once you've had all your parts checked and accounted for, the next step is we're going to move along and cut through these pouches and remove all the parts and start grouping them together by each section, just to get an idea and a layout of how big and how many these parts are and get a feel of the resin. And as you can see, I'm pretty much ready to go to cut through and get this process over with. But before we begin, I'd just like to take the moment in time to take a little B-roll look at all of our parts. Let's check it out. Oh, that was nice. All right, now we're going to move on to the pre-build phase. Now in this part, I'm going to start off with the head. Usually the head can be the easiest part, or it could become the most complicated part depending on how the process of it goes together. Now that we have all of our parts for the head assembled, as you can see, the Rig DS is pretty simple. It's only 4 parts that are going to be resin, pretty much the head casing, the piping for the back end, also the top that hides the guns and the sensors on top. But we can't just build this kit without the rest of the parts. So we're going to have to dismantle this head and take apart a few things that we're going to need off of it as well. Once we removed all the base parts from the original kit, as you can see, the only thing we have left over is the mono eye, the attachment for it, and the gun that goes to the top part of the fin as well. And really, that's about it. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Oh, and let's not forget the cockpit. Next, we move right along to cutting our flash nubs. Now, flash nubs are a little bit more chunky and thick boys compared to the Bandai ones you see on the runners. I suggest getting some nippers that are more dedicated to cutting resin than just the casual nippers that you would use on the Bandai runners. That way you don't have any issues where the parts may split if the resin is brittle or anything like that. And also try your best to cut horizontally on these parts so it doesn't prevent any type of splittage from happening as well. And right now I'm just basically trying to get it as mostly flush as I can on certain areas, especially when you're connecting them, because these flash nubs will cause problems with fittage, which you'll probably see later on in this video as well. And it's also just to give you an idea of how the part really looks. It's also very important to have your instruction manual handy nearby so you can get an idea of just how much of the flash nub you need to remove, and hopefully you don't take off too much of a part where you're going to have to break out some either thick CA glue or some claw plates to fix your problems. It's a thing that happens, don't worry about it. Once we remove enough of our flash nubs, we're going to move right along to the pre-fitting test of all the parts. Now, this usually is a hit or miss whenever dealing with resin kits. Sometimes the Bandai parts don't line up too well with the resin kits because of a lot of the factors that add into it being a problem. For instance, shrinkage can be a thing. Connecting parts don't line up, things like that for that matter. As you can see right now in the video, I'm on a struggle bus trying to get these parts together. But when I was building the base kit for it for the pre-test, I was also having the same problem with the head. So this is probably the most annoying part of the build right now, is getting all these parts to sit properly. Oh, there goes another one. Oh, shit. And just keeping it together was such a issue for me at this point in the phase. I really feel like I'm gonna have to do some kind of finagling, maybe some drilling or gluing for certain parts to be held together. This is just a hot mess to watch. Okay, you know what? Let's go over to the next clip now. After a little bit of off-camera work, we finally got the head to come together as one whole piece. Yeah, that was a real struggle right there, but overall, it's holding up well. All right, well, shit, I spoke too soon. It's holding up well enough, all right? Like I said, a little bit of gluing, a little bit of work. And moving right on down, we come up to the chest piece. The chest piece is the same, 4 pieces as usual. And I gotta say, these are some of the nicest parts that I've seen so far on this kit. I really like the work that they did on the shoulders. I mean, just a complete change. Nothing from the original one is still there. Complete custom new look to it and everything. One thing I also noticed about this part here in particular, that I thought the peg was broken on it, and I was kind of like, what the hell? But if you look at the instruction manual, you can see it has the same situation as well. So I guess this was intentional for the studio's part, and I guess it's just how they removed it, and they just said, the hell with it, give it to them like this. Gotta love a custom artist work. After removing all the base pieces from the armor set, we begin by trying to attach the resin shoulders to it, but that little notch on the front wasn't really holding in place. You know, wishful thinking to see if it could work. Instead, we're just going to use our old sticky tack to help us out in this situation. This will just be a temporary placement holder while we're doing the dry fit, just to get an idea of how everything will look. I'll probably go back through and drill a couple holes in and try using magnets more instead of glue. That way it'll have a more firm hold into the placement than glue would have. And so far, it comes out looking really nice on top of the shoulders. Like, the design change from the original base kit is just night and day with seeing this part attached to it. After securing both of the shoulders to the frame, we're going to move along and attach the final 2 parts of the pieces for the body, and everything was pretty much straightforward. It kind of was like pretty much a snap together. No problems there with fitment issues or anything. Everything slid together perfectly as if building a regular kit. And it's made me a little bit more confident building this one and feel like it's going to be really easy. As I was clipping the flash nubs off of the shoulders, I ran across one part in particular that most people would be happy to see on a regular Bandai kit. A little bit of underrunner, but in the case of resin, this is kind of a negative. It's a harder cut to get through, and sometimes you can't really get it too flush on this phase, but it's a real problem because it's on the inside, which is going to cause some issues with it fitting and everything. So it's try to get as best as you can. Don't forget to sand as well. On occasion, you're going to run into parts like this with resins with this very thin film that's encased over it after it was being cast. Now, for this part, it may not look like it's a major issue, but the thing is, it's not the thin part that you have to worry about. It's the part that it's attached to that I'm scraping off of. This can be a thick cut and cause issues with connectivity as well. After cleaning up some of the flash nubs off of the kit, we're going to move along and start taking off pieces of the original base kits off of the frame and expose to what we need. Next, we'll begin our fitment test. Now, these parts are pretty much rock solid. It's a straight fit true to size. A little bit of shaking and no problems there. Other side also pretty solid, no problems there at all. And we're gonna slide this fin on, very easy. Now, the hard part is going to be this. Now, like I said, that undergate is now showing where it's becoming a problem. And now we're having some fitment issues. And it's unable to slide on because of that part in general. And because of that, I'm gonna have to go off screen for a second and try to clean this part up a little bit more than I expected I have to. After going off screen and getting everything cleaned up, we now have a fully-ishly put together piece. There's a little bit of that space right there at the top of it. I still have to clean a little bit more of that undergating off. But until then, I'm moving on to the next one and on to the next side. As you can see right here, this is all we're gonna need for the arms. Just the hands and a couple of joints and the shoulder top piece. So let's get started on the rest with the resin. And of course, this is where our troubles begin with this kit. As you can see, there was a little problem in the casting and one of the female connecting pieces got filled instead of being hollowed out. So now it's our job to go through and open it back up. I'm using, I believe, a 3mm drill bit to just carve it out a little bit and hopefully get the other side to connect perfectly together with it. After drilling a hole for the connector, we had also run into another issue, my greatest enemy of all dealing with resin kits: shrinkage. The part ended up, I guess, not being heated or cooled. I don't know the entire thing behind shrinkage, but I know it when I see it, and this is causing the problem for the pieces not to fit flush together, as you're seeing right now. So I'm gonna have to either go back later and carve out a little bit more of the resin or cut down on the inner frame part so that way it can sit a little bit more flush together, but this is not looking good. Apologies in advance, I forgot to record the rest of the assembly of the arm, but the right ended up having some more issues. As you can see where the piping is at, there was shrinkage and now the interconnecting joints are too big compared to the resin parts. And it's also a problem on the backside for the forearm, but luckily the left arm was fine, so I guess we can walk away saying 50-50. Next up, we're going to work on my second favorite part of this kit that attracted me to it, the hips. I really liked it because it came with the fuselages as well, and seeing how it incorporates along with the Bandai base kit makes it really a nice touch. As you can see, this thinner fuselage connects just perfectly well to the Bandai base kit without any problems or issues, and it's holding up pretty well. Remember how that shoulder looked with that thin film? Well, here's its cousin, and it's chonky. It's thick. I'm just taking my scraper right now, just making a center hole and preparing for when I have to scrape the sides off, because it's going to be important that this piece is very clean, because the interconnector has to go through this as well, and it's going to have to sit deep into that well, because as you can see, it is a lot, and then inside it's a lot as well. Take your time, clean up. After cleaning up the well a little bit more with this file here, I was able to open it up more because I did a test fit off camera as well, and I was having an issue with this other connector not being able to sit and fit well into the part because I just didn't clean it up enough. Because as you can see, when you're pressing it in, these parts right here, these little indented parts, they have to fit completely inside of that hole. Because if they don't fit inside the hole too well, you're going to have problems connecting your thrusters to the backside because they just kept falling off or being not deep enough for them to connect. And it should look like this, pretty much. That way you know you have it in there really well. With that problem out the way, we're able to attach the Bandai thrusters perfectly well and no issues of them falling out even with the tanks attached to them. And this was a happy thing to see because this was giving me an issue for about 20 minutes when I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on with the parts. But the end results really show for itself. As you can see, this thing looks immaculate. I really like the touch to it and the design. It looks very sleek. The rest of the parts for the hips snapped on perfectly like a base kit part. Nothing was an issue or a problem for the most part, and I really love the details on both the side skirts and the front skirts for that. These little parts I'm not too worried about right now and seeing their fitting because I don't want to lose them. These small parts like this, they'll definitely get lost. The detail on those front skirts as well is really nice, and you can just see like all the panel lining work on there, and it's going to be so crisp when I go through with the scriber and clean them up a little bit more, because some of the lines are a little bit shallow in order to have a decent look to them. But overall, A+. Next, we're going to attach it to the back of the waist to finish it off. Now, the back panel is going to be the original kit, and as you can see, there was really no issues to it at all connecting. Everything was perfectly fitting together. It wasn't loose, it wasn't falling out like it was originally, because again, I didn't clean that inner well out, so it was constantly falling off the back side of it. Even with its few hurdles, I have to say this is by far, so far, my favorite part I've built on this kit so far. Definitely A+, guys, A+. So this next part kind of threw me for a loop. The big tank had a long connecting rod that was attached to it, but the part that it attached to, the hole size for that to go through was not a drill bit size that I had. Everything else was too big or too small, so instead I opted out and just kind of drilled it out and put a magnet on one side and on the other side of the tank as well. I'll have to go back later and add probably a couple of more to make it a more snug, solid fit, but it was able to attach and hold really well. And that was actually shockingly surprising. It seemed heavier than what it looked like. And while I was at it, I decided just to go ahead and give it a little test run to see if it would hold, and it fits pretty well and not having really too much issues. I wouldn't not shake it a lot because, you know, right now it's only one magnet holding it together. So far, so good. Next, we're going to jump right into the legs. I'm starting off with the thighs right now. I'm just filing down to get rid of that inner flash so that way the parts can connect a lot better together, because these parts seem to have a lot of inner flash snubs that are going to be a problem to get a tight and proper fit. And as here, we're going to go ahead and attach it and wait for it. Oh, that's a crisp ass snap. Gotta enjoy those. But overall, this was a solid part right here. Everything seems to be working together. There's a little bit of looseness in that knee joint part, but that's something I can handle when we're into the final stages. We now come to our first issue with the leg. Now, I originally used the H15 part when I did the pre-build, but the instruction manual for the Resin kit didn't specify that you need to use the H10 base in order to attach their thruster to it. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to say goodbye and eat that out of the way. So next, we'll be attaching this part directly and run into our second challenge. Now, the Resin kit part for the thrusters was kind of weird shape, and it didn't make sense on how it was supposed to connect. So instead, I just clipped that part off, and now I'm just sizing it up, trying to get a good position to where I want it to be at, so that way it's not interfering with any of the outer armor and layers. And we're just going to make a little pinhole right here so we have a guideline so we can drill a hole for our magnet that we're placing in, like so, and just like that, perfectly flush and perfectly fit. Once we make sure we're secure, I'm going to take another magnet off and I'm going to place it on top. That way it'll be easier to install it to the leg and also have to go to the trouble of accidentally having different polarities for them. You're also going to want to attach this base part back to it, so that way you can understand where your clearance and how much space you're working with, so when you start drilling. Here I took some black CA glue just to use as a place marker, so when I can drill, I know where I'm going to be at. And we're just going to take our time, make sure we're in a good spot, dab like so, and we can begin drilling right here. After drilling is complete, we can finally press the other side of the magnet into the leg. And like that, we got a perfectly flush fit and a perfectly working well. Neither side's pulling out, so I say that's a good day and a good challenge completed. After completing that issue with the thrusters, we move along and we go back and we start attaching the rest of the armors to the leg. We start with the front part of the armor and attach the back of the armor. As you can see, we have a pretty huge gap right here in the armor, but that's just because of, once again, inner flash nut parts are not all the way sand down, and also the original Gundam part is not sitting flush because I have to go back around and sand out this area a little bit more, so that way we have some space to tighten it up. As you can see, it's on both sides, so this is a simple fix, not too much to worry about. This next part was a pretty neat feature I really liked of it. It gives like an outer armor, and then you can see the exposures of the other one, which is going to be really great when making some color choices to paint with. And this actually was having a little bit of issue connecting, because as you can see, there's still some flash snubs that are on there, and my dumb ass thinking it'll go on because of that. So time to get back and do a little bit more filing work. After that filing, you should have a pretty good fit. Next, we installed the back panel for the leg as well. I was really happy with this one. Went in, no problems at all. Now this side panel that's going to cover up the part of the thruster, there's really no connection or anything to it. This will either be another magnet situation, or for the most part, we'll probably glue this on. But for the time being, I'll probably just use some sticky tack and call it a day. And we attached the front knee part. It went on very smooth. And there you have it. We have all the legs together and assembled. Now, as you can tell, they both have the same issues and the same problems on both sides. So luckily, it's not a shrinkage issue. It's just a little bit more cleanup work. And to bring the legs all together, we're going to start assembly of the feet. Now, the feet were probably the most detailed, intricate designs that I've seen. Like, the heel on this thing is amazing. They put a lot of extra work to customizing the design. And right now, I'm just magnet fit testing this side piece. As you can see, they made a circle outline so you can tell where to place it. I'm going to move along and start clearing out some more of this flash, scraping off any extra bits, so that way we can have some good fitment right here when we go into assembly. Now, the one thing I'll gripe about this kit is that instruction manual does not have clear instructions on what to do with certain base parts when attaching. Sometimes you do have to cut pieces in order to get a better fitment on here, but they never made it really that clear on whether or not I should be doing that. As once again, it puts me on the struggle bus tour here as we're trying to get this underside of the Bandai base feet to slide into the part. And there goes another part, another issue to deal with. So in order to get a more flush fit to it, we're gonna have to do a little bit of knit tuck work and resize it down a little bit so that way we can get a good placement with inside the foot right here. We're just gonna take off a little bit of the tip like so, and remove a couple more front parts because I think it's causing some clearance issues when trying to slide it in. So that front little part is going to get clipped and removed. Then we're going to take our file and we're going to give it a little bit more smooth and flush look to it, and this should help out a little bit better to get us a more flush connection to the part. And we're just going to place it in like so, and hopefully this should solve our problems.
Okay, Builder Mario here right now instead of voiceover Mario. I'm just going to say this foot is garbage. Real garbage. Just to get it to work. As you can see, it seems to be in there pretty well. Pretty nice. But we had a lot of problems. I just thought I was going to have to get a little bit more customizable to get this base into the rest of the resin. But, come to find out, here's the other leg I haven't worked on. Line it up. And as you can see, serious shrinkage issue. Because, like, you take this part. Where did I do with the other one? There it is. Notice this one has all its pegs and connectors. Slide it in. Whoop. Boom. Look at that. Perfect fit. Very nice. Now let's cut edit real quick, and I'll show you what I had to do to get that in. And this is what I had to do on the shrunk foot from the shrinkage. I had to remove all connectors, flatten this out just to make it leveled inside there, and then we had to cut all along and take the tip off as well, as you saw, and down here to there, just to get this part to go in. So pretty much this foot is only being held by 2 pegs. Resin kit problems you're gonna run into, and they fucking suck. Ugh.
Now that Builder Mario is done having his mental rage breakdown over that, we move along to our next part, which is the thrusters. Here, we're going to disassemble and take apart the few pieces that we're going to need, which isn't mostly a lot. We're going to need this inner frame piece right here. It's the only thing, honestly, and a joint connector that we're going to need off of this in order to create the whole resin piece together. Now let's take a look at the part, the thrusters. This thing is amazing. They definitely did a 180 overhaul on this. A lot of extra detail and work went into this piece, as well as they made it extended a little bit more and gave it height as well to it. And also they gave it more on each of the parts of the 3 that comes with it to make the thruster. This one is a little warpage that happened. Maybe it was from when they had packaged it or after removing it from the casting and removing it from the mold that it ended up like this. This is a common occurrence in very thin parts like this. And you just got to be careful because they're thin, brittle, and it can lead to a little bit of a breakage. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and handle these flash nubs. Now I'd like to show you how you handle these issues with warpage. Now there are 2 methods to doing this. You can boil some water, throw it in there for about a couple of minutes or one just to get it soft enough. Then you can take your time to reshape it to how you want, but instead I opted to use my heat gun. And I'm just sitting here right now heating it up so I can get it a little bit soft and so I can remold it to where I want it to be at. I couldn't really tell from the instruction and reference pictures just how much of a gap there is for it, so I'm just taking it a little bit slowly and we'll have a better idea of where it needs to be once we assemble the parts and get an idea of the look that we want to have. It's very important to be careful though right here because this heat gun is getting really hot, and as you can see it just keeps molding it out of place and how soft and pliable the resin becomes for us to shape. But it's a double-edged sword. It can end up melting and bending over if you're not careful enough, and you could cause extra issues that you don't want when it comes to doing this. And when it rains, it pours. We once again face the dreaded shrinkage issue once again. As you can see, this part is not gonna fit how it's supposed to. Even heating this part up, it was not gonna help make it connect, and it was just gonna make another problem. So we're gonna have to get creative and figure something else out. So in order to combat this issue, I'm just gonna go ahead and take my nippers and cut it right at this crease line that's on the part. And after cutting it, we're just going to take it and try to place it onto the base part of the Bandai kit and see how well that worked. The shrinkage for this part is very severe, much worse than what I had to deal with on the feet. As you can see, we still have a huge gap and a connection problem, and I'm just struggling trying to get an idea of how well this is going to sit on here. I might have to opt out and cut that bridge off just so I can get both of those sides to sit. There's going to be another part that sits over this anyway, so you won't be able to see that detail once it comes together, but this is just an option that I'm playing with for right now. And our shrinkage saga continues. The other part of the thruster also has a major shrinkage issues. Right now, I'm trying to file out the inner parts of this resin part so that way the base kit can fit inside of it. Just as the feet, we're dealing with another issue of such, and just a little bit more work and love and care. Right? And finally, here's the grand reveal of the thrusters. I hate them. Both sides had shrinkage. I couldn't even get lucky and get one part to fit in there. So once again, there was some cutting on both sides. The one in my left hand is the right thruster. I actually tried to use the heat gun to kind of just stretch it out and to make it fit more. It worked, but I tried to keep the base Bandai piece together with it so that way I can try to get the connectors to snap together, and I held it too close to the heat gun and ended up melting the Bandai part. So now I'm going to have to use some polyester putty later on and correct that along with the parts that I snapped. As much as I love this design, it was pure hell trying to get it to work. God help me, but at least now we have completed everything for the Master Grade Rick Diaz, and now I give you the final build. If you made it this far, I'd like to take a moment to thank my Patreon members, Pixie Builds, Sam Eden, and Orange Inkling Knight. I appreciate you guys' support, and if you want to, you can come over there and join the Patreon so you can get early access to videos a day ahead of my YouTube videos. And also, down in the comments, let me know how you like the narrative part of this video. It's my first time trying it. I didn't know how I would feel about doing it, but I appreciate everyone that always comes through and watches. We're so close to hitting 1,000 subscribers. Crazy, but this will just be the part 1 of the how to build. Once I take a little week break off, we'll be back and finishing up the build, and I'll show you how to finish up a resin kit. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.